Kia ora, no mai ki te whare. Welcome to The House, ko Louis Collins aho. At the beginning of the year, former Speaker Adrian Rurawhe called time on his parliamentary career. Because he wasn't an elected MP, the vacancy didn't trigger a by-election and Labour was entitled to bring in another candidate from its party list to replace him. A party's list is determined by how many votes it receives. In simple terms, the more party votes you get, the more MPs you're entitled to send to Parliament. So the next cab off the rank for Labour then was Hamilton-based unionist Georgie Dansey. Joining Parliament in the final 8 months or so before an election is a bit like being the new kid at school in the last term before exams. You're still figuring out what classes you're in, who you sit with, and how everything else works. Except here, the equivalents are finding out what spokesperson portfolios you have, what select committee assignments, and learning the rhythms of the debating chamber. For starters, you've got to be sworn in. You can't actually conduct any MP duties in the House until doing so.
I've received from the Electoral Commission a return declaring Georgie Dansey to be elected a Member of Parliament to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of the Right Honourable Adrian Rurawhe from his list seat. I understand that Georgie Dansey is present and wishes to make an affirmation of allegiance. Would she please come forward to the chair on my right?
Ko ahau, ko Georgie Dansey, e ki ana I runga I te pono, e te tika, e te nākau tapatahi, me te whakao anō. Ka noho pirihonga, ka noho pūmau ki a kingi taere, te tuatoru me tōna kāhui, whakahiki e ki te ture.
Then comes your first real opportunity to address the House, and by extension the country, as an MP, your maiden statement. Now, there's a bit of a formula to maiden speeches and statements. And I say speeches and statements because in parliamentary parlance, a statement refers to a maiden speech delivered after the address and reply debate at the start of a parliamentary term. But for all practical purposes, it's the same thing. Some parties have stronger expectations than others about what you should and shouldn't say in a maiden speech, but generally, you begin with your background, who you are, where you come from, and what has shaped you.
Mr. Speaker, when I was 8, we moved to Katikati at the foot of the Kaimai Ranges. School holidays were spent packing beer sticks and salamis in my stepdad Bill's venison salami small goods business. I don't remember talking about politics with my parents, but what I do remember are long conversations about the financial stability of the business. What I learnt was that owning a small business is hard and that it took constant work to keep the business afloat, support employees, while also supporting our whānau.
From there, MPs usually move into what they stand for, their values, ideologies, and the issues they want to champion. It's also usually the part of the speech that signals what kind of parliamentarian we can expect them to be.
What I have seen on the front lines of education in this country is that one size does not fit all. We need different pathways to success for our rangatahi and our tamariki. I want to see a system that supports all learners, a system that celebrates the uniqueness and gifts of our neurospicy kids, one that provides a wraparound social support for our most vulnerable, and a system that recognises creativity and the arts as a cornerstone of being human.
And then Dansey did something that not every maiden speaker chooses to do. She sharpened her tone. Maiden speeches are often generous. They tend to be heavy on gratitude and light on confrontation. But Dansey pivoted to a direct critique of the current government. It's the kind of move that reminds us that we're in election year, and Dansey seems keen to not treat her new job as a short end-of-term cameo, but the beginning of a long and fruitful career as an MP.
I am devastated that this government does not value the work that these hard-working people do by repealing fair pay agreements. Letting the market decide does not work. In a competitive industry where employers must bid for contracts, it becomes a race to the bottom for employee conditions and wages. This government has taken a range of policies and laws that have made life harder and more expensive to be a worker in New Zealand.
Most speech writing advice, whether from your high school English teacher or Toastmasters, says that you should leave an audience with something that lingers, a line that carries beyond the room or the debating chamber, something personal, something profound. Sometimes it's an anecdote, sometimes a waiata, sometimes borrowed wisdom. For Dansey, it was this whakatoki.
This whakatoki is a strong message of encouragement, urging one to be courageous, determined and persistent, never giving up in the face of adversity, no matter how difficult the struggle. As I start my journey in this house, for as long as I am privileged to be here, may I walk in the courageous footsteps of my tupuna for a fair and just society. Koe e mate whike, mate ururawa. Kia ora.
Making your first speech in Parliament is no mean feat. Even MPs who are lifelong public speakers can get nervous, and no matter how many times you rehearse in front of the mirror in your office, it's a daunting challenge. But of course, every experienced parliamentarian starts the same way, rising for that first, slightly nerve-wracking speech. But like anything, it gets easier with practice. During her maiden speech, Dansey did well to avoid reading too much from her notes, which always makes for a stronger speech. But with more on that, here's Phil Smith.
Kia ora, ko Smith aho. At the beginning of each parliamentary year, there is a long debate in which MPs consider whether or not they have confidence in the government. In the event of a recent election, that debate is over the government's plan, as outlined in the speech from the throne. Otherwise, it's over a speech from the Prime Minister. This year, as usual, the debate on the Prime Minister's statement was staggered and intermingled with other business across 2 weeks. It came to a finish at the end of last week. You may not be surprised to know that the governing coalition, who control a majority of the House, voted to confirm that they like what they're doing and they want to stay on in government. With the vote over and echoes of shouting fading from the House, we thought that today we should bring you a few highlights from that 10-hour-long debate, a few moments from the best speakers, other than the leaders, who we gave some time to at the beginning. The MPs we thought gave particularly good performances all had something in common. They did not read their speeches. They generally came with a few bullet points and then went from there. Now that takes experience and knowledge and skill. The stronger speeches from left and from right were probably MPs that are oft seen as possible future leaders. One of them, and speaking early on in the debate, was National's Chris Bishop.
Second thing the Labour Party does is engage in empty and vacuous criticism. And you can see this in Chris Hipkins's speech in response to the Prime Minister. All this recitation of the fact that bread's a bit more expensive, milk prices of butter and things like that. Empty, vacuous criticism. They have no answers, no solutions, no policy, just criticism. Well, I've been through opposition. I know how it goes. It feels good for a while, but eventually, particularly in election year, the public eventually turn up and say, yeah, we get you can be critical. What have you got?
And likely the best on the opposing side, and one of the final speakers, Labour's Kieran McAnulty.
An absolute dud. This is election year. This is a year that the National Party should be talking about all their achievements. Their leader stood up and ran out of puff after 14 minutes. He had 6 minutes spare. He actually ran out of things to say because they haven't achieved anywhere near they are pretending to achieve. And the thing is, deep down, I think they've given up. I actually think they have given up. They've given up trying to find a solution to the problems that are facing this country and the problems that they have created, and what they're doing now is just simply trying to make it look like they're doing things and trying to kid New Zealanders. The thing with New Zealanders, though, is that they are not thick.
Both those speakers segued between topics with ease and without carefully written out lines. They both spoke widely. By comparison, many of National's speakers were hampered by the fact that they appear to have been given instructions to stay within their bailiwick, with the addition of a few talking points that became frankly repetitious. Most National backbenchers ended up talking about their own electorates, which does not stay thrilling for 10 hours. A few, though, managed to elevate dry topics with pure energy. Here's another of National's future hopes, Katie Nimmin.
So, next weekend, for those of you that don't know and for those of you that have nothing planned, pack your bags and come to Napier for Art Deco Weekend.
Damien O'Connor will be there.
What a wonderful event. We have got a massive lineup, and of course the government has put more funding into regional events like Art Deco Weekend, who sees thousands of Kiwis and thousands of people coming from overseas dressed up in their Art Deco finery to celebrate heritage and culture.
For Labour, Venushi Walters showed that this kind of debate doesn't have to be all about the traditional local pocketbook topics. It can also handle weighty material, and it can discuss it soberly. Her area of expertise is international law and human rights, so she went with that.
This is a government who have failed to join South Africa's legal challenge at the ICJ, despite joining it in the Ukraine-Russia case. Suddenly, the rules-based order no longer matters. This is a government who has failed to recognise Palestine. This is a government where the foreign minister has been publicly mulling leaving the World Health Organization. It's a government who in one breath say they stand up for human rights, say in one breath that they stand up for human rights, and in the next they abstain on a vote on the Golan Heights.
We don't have vaguely enough time for all of the standouts, but there were strong off-the-cuff performances from MPs like Arena Williams, Aisha Verrill, Paul Goldsmith, Takuta Ferris, Erica Stanford, Megan Woods and more besides. The speeches tended to be more reliably strong and or entertaining on the opposition side, but that's often the case regardless of who is in power. So many speeches were read, and read carefully, especially by junior governing MPs. And maybe that is a downside of this government's focus on rapid legislating and quick debates. After 2 years, many of their backbenchers have still had scant speaking practice, their votes exercised more often than their voices. But they'll get there, hopefully. You've been listening to The House, e te whakarongo koe ki te whare. This program is produced with funding from Parliament's Office of the Clerk. Nā te wā.